Morning, everyone, or afternoon, or wherever you actually are. I'm glad to see the chat's filling up there. Great to see that happening. Anyway, welcome to this local SEO segment of Semrush webinar, where we're going to be looking at 10 SERP features that small businesses, or any business really, with a GMB profile can take advantage of. So the lineup today, we've got it's amazing. We've got a presentation by Joy Hawkins, which probably everyone here knows. That's already streaming in there. Hey Joy, hey Joy, hey Joy. Anyway, Joy is the owner of Sterling Sky and the recent acquisition of this local search forum, which is amazing. They've done a great job already on that. She's also the author of the Expert's Guide to Local SEO on the Local U. If you haven't downloaded it, go ahead and check it out. It's updated, super informative. We've got Carrie Hill, who's the co-founder of Ignitor Digital with Mary Bowling. She's the event coordinator and webmaster at Local U. And Carrie's been in SEO since 2006, so we've got a lot of experience here. She's a semantic markup nerd, fan of website audits, and is in the Colorado Rockies. And we're also joined by Jesse McDonald, Director and Operations of Top Hat Rank. He's been working in the industry for 4.5 years, spending the majority of time specializing in local SEO market. Great to have everyone with us. And this should be great. Let's see, we've got a lot of people already jumping in. So Joy, if you are ready, you can dial up your presentation.
All right, perfect. All right, everyone can see that okay? You good, Tim?
Yeah, that looks perfect.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. They actually asked me if I really wanted to include 10, given the time frame, and I was like, yeah, I'll shove 10 in here. So I apologize to people that don't like fast talkers, because I tend to be one of those. But I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. So these are all features, the ones I'm going to be covering that apply to small businesses. Some are through Google My Business, some are through data markup on your website. So I will try to clarify which is which. So number one here would be these things that we call attributes, which are features inside Google My Business and also attached to Google search. Where they show up is often people kind of forget or don't realize these exist because they're mobile only features. So if you open up your mobile device and you look on either the Google Maps app or on a Chrome browser or some other browser, you'll notice that usually on the About tab, there are these little icons. Sometimes they also appear on the Overview tab. And they look kind of like this. And then usually sometimes they're, as you can see in the accessibility section here, they're just words. So the wheelchair accessible and whatnot. How to get them though, there's two different ways, which is somewhat confusing to people. One way is to go into the Google My Business dashboard, and this is where it gets kind of confusing. Google has different messaging for these depending on what industry you're in. So sometimes it says attributes, sometimes it says highlights, or sometimes it says something else. So what you're really looking for is the tag icon. You'll notice that in both of these cases, even though they're one says highlights, one says add attributes, they both have the tag icon. And on the right-hand side, you'll kind of see, this is, I believe, a dentist. But there are a lot of options depending on what business category you would fall into. The other thing to keep in mind is that there are some attributes that are not in the Google My Business dashboard because Google doesn't really care what the business owner thinks in that case. They only care about users. Usually these are things that describe the business that are subjective. So, not everyone might find the business hip, for example. So Google's not going to ask the business owner, do you think you're hip? Because most likely they would all say yes. So these attributes are things that only get prompted to users. The thing is as a business owner, you can actually go and vote on these yourselves if you want to. You just have to do so publicly on the listing. You cannot do it from within the Google My Business dashboard. So I always tell people whenever we're doing audits to look at both. Look inside GMB, but also look directly on Google search results and click the Know This Place and see what other questions it asks you. I got a cool one this morning that I tweeted out, which was that Google was actually asking the users to vote on the profile photo. So it had two different options and said, which of these photos do you like better? And I thought that was kind of interesting. Bonus tips. So this is actually funny. So I created this slide about a week ago and this actually changed. So what's on here is wrong. Google just recently changed this. Before a week ago, you had to have another attribute to get the highly rated icon. Google actually confirmed with me about a week ago that was actually not how it was supposed to work. So they changed it. So now all these businesses that didn't have the highly rated icon because they didn't have other attributes now have it. So that change, if you're wondering, was just about a week ago. The price range field is another thing that I find a lot of people don't have or don't even realize how it works. This is something actually I have to credit Tim for. He told me about this a long time before I ever saw anyone write about it, blog about it, etc. So what I'm referring to is this. On the Google search results, you'll see the price range field usually shows up beside reviews. And what a lot of people don't realize is that you can pretty much put anything you want in this field. When I first saw it initially, I thought, okay, it has to be like a dollar symbol, 1 through 5, something like that. But then you'll see here, like, this airport hotel has from $225. Then you've got this personal injury attorney that's got free initial consultation. So you can really customize what you want to show up in this field. And it's kind of cool because it's one of the very few things that actually shows up on the search results that you can directly influence. How to get it. So it's actually a field that is nested under location schema. So you have to have proper location schema on your website in order to get it. And then make sure that the price range field is filled out. I swear about 90 to 95% of the ones I look at don't have this field included at all. So that's a good tip there. Questions and answers. So this is a feature that Google launched back in 2017. First, they launched it to users before they really even did anything with businesses. So it's kind of interesting. But Google will show a question and answer in your knowledge panel if you add one yourself or if you have one from a user that you want to feature. It's based on votes. So literally you have to go to both the question and the answer and click this little upvote button, which shows up. It's like a thumbs up. And you'll see here the difference. So this first attorney that I have, Gomez Trial Attorney, they don't have anything voted on. So it just says CL questions 1. Then when you've got Mova Law Group, you'll see this person has an upvote on the question only. So it doesn't show the answer. You have to click to see the answer. And then in Sterling Sky, my company's case, you'll see we have an upvote on both the question and the answer. Keep in mind that only one question and one answer can get featured in your knowledge panel, so choose it wisely. It's not like you can get 5 or 6 of them. And this is how you get the little upvotes that I'm referring to here. It comes down to which one has the most upvotes. So if you've got 5 different questions and multiple of them have different upvotes, you'll have to make sure that the one that you want has the most upvotes. So it's kind of easy to manipulate, which is cool in my opinion, because it's, again, one of the few things that business owners actually have a say in, which is nice. So yeah, if you don't have any questions on your listing, you can actually submit your own. Some people are worried about this. They think maybe this is against Google's guidelines. It's not. I've asked them. They actually suggest that you do this. So no issues there. And this could really backfire if you're not aware or monitoring what is showing up on your listing. So, in this Walmart that's near me, someone's talking about how this is a ghetto-ass Walmart. And that's not obviously what Walmart would want on their knowledge panel, but this is literally what showed up when I searched it because it had the most votes. Obviously, people thought it was funny. So pay attention to Q&A. Product schema. So this is another thing that would be on your website. And how it looks in the search results is like displayed here. So this would work really well for, I give an example of a mattress store. Say you've got a mattress store and you've got all kinds of different mattresses. You can actually mark up each mattress page with the correct product schema so that when it shows up in the search results, it shows things like the reviews for that mattress, the price range for that mattress, is it in stock or not? You'll see, obviously, there's like different variations here, but we did this for a client of ours that does home automation. So they have different home automation products. Some things are like security cameras. Some things are like, lights that go on and off, or like those really expensive blinds that you can get that go up and down if you talk to Google Home. So we were able to mark up all of these and have them show, the dollar amounts, the rating and whatnot for each actual product. So this is how you get it, is you have to add the product schema to each specific page on your website for each product. And you can customize them differently. The thing that I see people do wrong, a lot of times the reason why businesses don't actually get the schema markup showing in the search results is because they accidentally put too many types of schema on one page. So a lot of local businesses will put the local business schema on the page, and then they'll also add product schema. And I have found that these two conflict, and often when you have both, nothing will show up in cases that I've looked at. So kind of a tip there is make sure if you are going to add a product schema code to a page, do not also add the local business code, because I think in Google's head, they're thinking, how can you both be a local business and a product? It's a little confusing. So don't do that. And this was, I think, an example that on the left here, this was the page that had both the local business and the product schema. And you'll see like all that additional product information is not actually showing on their search result. Number 5, have your website as a third-party review source. I'll explain what I mean by that. So a lot of times when you do a search for a business name, you will get, the knowledge panel, and you'll get these reviews from the web. So in this example, I use Allstate in this example because they've done this correctly. But you'll see that Allstate is actually sourced as a review source in the knowledge panel, and it's pulling the reviews from their own website. So instead of having some third party that you can't really control or do much with, you can actually have your own site show up as a source of reviews. How do you do this? Well, my recommendation, you can do it manually, there is a way, but I would strongly suggest using a tool for it to gather reviews on your website. The thing that, as far as Google's guidelines is concerned, is they're supposed to be unique reviews. So you're not supposed to put reviews on your website and mark them up if they're from Yelp or from Google or some other third-party source. However, if you're generating your own testimonials and reviews using a method that kind of complies with Google's guidelines, like GradeUs and GatherUp do, then you're fine to mark them up. So my recommendation would be to just utilize one of the services that does that. Service menu. This is a feature that is inside Google My Business, launched, I believe, last year. And this is an often missed thing because it is another mobile-only feature. So, you're not going to see menu links on the knowledge panel for most service businesses on desktop. You will see them as their own tab here. So I think this is Steady Demand. Steady Demand's listing. So Ben Fisher, who's a fellow Google My Business top contributor with Tim and I, this is the profile that he has for his company. And you'll see like he's got, all these different services that Steady Demand offers. The thing that, again, some people don't realize is that you can leave prices off. Obviously, it's a little tricky to price local SEO because it could vary. So you wouldn't necessarily want to put a price there, but like their Google Post service, for example, has a price because it's a fixed cost. So you can kind of play around with that and put whatever fits your business and services. Inside Google My Business, there should be a little service icon. Actually, I ran into a business this morning that did not have it. So it looks like there are some categories this may not show up for. The one I was looking at, I think, was like a Windows installation company, and I was surprised to see that it didn't exist inside Google My Business. But I'd say the majority of the business listings that I've looked at have this as an option. So you want to be on the info tab and look for this services. If you do want to see it on desktop, you actually can trigger it. I don't know how many people would search this unless they're, obviously referring to restaurants. I think searches like this would likely happen a lot. But if you search Steady Demand menu, I'm not sure anyone's going to do that. But if you want to see your the way that your menu looks, you can see it on desktop. You just have to type that in. Product posts are another new feature that Google launched this year. So the cool thing about them is they are another type of Google post, but they're somewhat special in the sense that they show up on mobile in a products tab. So it actually gets your listing another whole tab if you have product posts. If you don't have any product posts, then you don't have that tab. So you basically have to have them to get it. And again, using Steady Demand here as an example, you'll see that they've got 2 different posts here for different products they offer. And now these kind of forever show up in this products tab. So kind of a new cool feature that Google's got. Inside Google My Business, you would be looking for the posts tab. And then on posts, you'll see there's all these different types of posts you can do. You'd want to do the one for products. Again, kind of makes more sense for businesses that actually have products. May not make sense if you were like a lawyer trying to do a product post, would be kind of tricky. GMB messaging is a feature that was launched last year. What I think is kind of neat about it is that it shows up on mobile only. So again, lots of people don't realize this feature exists because they're using their computers more often during the day. But it gets you this message icon. But what I think is also neat is that it gives you this contact us now call to action button on your knowledge panel. Another thing that it does, which I just got recently, it's not on this screenshot here, but it'll show you how quickly the person responds. And I was actually wondering how many messages you had to get that icon. Turns out the answer is 1. I had someone send me a message through this on a different webinar that I did a couple weeks ago. And they're like, oh, this is cool. I'm just testing this feature. And I responded right away because it went to my cell phone. And now I have this like responds almost immediately kind of icon beside the contact us now. So it's very similar to Facebook. Facebook does that with their messenger service. Businesses that respond quickly get labeled as such. And on the right here, you'll see this is how it looks on your phone. So you can kind of see, once you open up the contact us now, it gives you this like pop-up box, and you're actually technically texting the business owner. You as the user would not see the business owner's phone number, but they could see yours. And then in how to set this up, it's really simple. It takes less than 5 minutes. You go into the Google My Business dashboard, set up messaging, verify your number, set up a welcome message, and you're done. Number 9 is the videos tab. So this is a kind of hidden feature, I'd say, like not as easy to find as some of the other ones I've mentioned, but on mobile again, and I believe this one also shows up on computers, but there is a sub tab underneath photos, which I believe also shows up on Google Maps on a computer, and it says videos. The thing is, you will not get this sub tab under photos unless you have 2 or more videos. So if you just add 1, you don't get it, but if you add 2 or more, then you get a videos tab. And these are videos that you add through the Google My Business dashboard under the Photos tab. So right there. And then last but not least, ads in the knowledge panel. I had to end with this one, given that Tim is our host, because he has so many opinions on this subject. So what these are is basically ads that show up directly on the knowledge panel for businesses. Ones that I've seen, for example, I've seen Grubhub, Groupon, I've seen more widely for lots of business types, and DoorDash, but I cannot get over how often these things show up. They were kind of really big at first in the US. So when I was traveling down there, I would notice them, but now we're starting to see them everywhere in Canada as well. And they show up often, most times unknown to the business owner. So the business owner didn't ask for them to be there or want them to be there necessarily. They just show up there if you have a profile in Groupon and you're paying for, a Groupon, or if you just have a profile in Grubhub, then they often just automatically pull in. So the question we often get is, how do I get rid of them? I haven't had anyone ask how to get them yet. Most of the time it's business owners that are freaking out because they signed up with Groupon and, thought that their ad was going to show up on Groupon, but then they realize every single person that is now searching their business name on Google is seeing this Groupon ad. So, obviously that could have a bad effect on their sales. So Tim did a post, which I quote quite often, that kind of goes into details on how to get your listing removed from the third-party site that is showing up as an ad. So just something to be aware of. A lot of times these do show up more so on mobile, I've found, than on computers. So something I would check on both, but often it's like a surprise when people find them. So I'm trying to do the best I can to get this news out there so people realize to look for them before they lose all kinds of money and commissions as a result. So I think I hit my 20-minute mark, or just under, but that's the main stuff that I had there to go over. Tim mentioned before, I just recently acquired the local search forum, so that's where I'm encouraging people to go and post any specific questions. If your questions do not get addressed in this webinar, feel free to follow up with me there.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Joy. That's there you're back. That's great. That's brilliant. Excellent. Yeah, so right, we've got a few questions here. We've got a question from JL Faverio. And so, oh, by the way, feel free, anyone, to kind of jump in where and if. So it's if you can submit your own and you're the expected one to answer as the business owner, are you actually allowed to answer your own questions?
Yes, absolutely.
So can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this looks a little funny. I was one of the early ones that questioned this because I thought it looked funny to have, like, if you were logged into the business and you asked a question and then you're logged into the business and you answered the question. I think it looks funny to the user. I know it's not against Google's guidelines to do that, but I think it looks funny. So for my clients, I would have them log in, or I would log in as myself or something and ask the question. And then I'd have the business profile or be logged in as the business and post the answer, because I think it's not quite as confusing and it doesn't look to the user as quote crafted unquote if it looks more like a conversation of questions and answers. But yeah, anybody can ask a question and anybody can answer that question, which, as Joy pointed out, is why you have to monitor this stuff, because sometimes the answers are not correct, or because local guides get incentivized to answer these questions, they answer with yes, no, maybe, look on the website. Like, some of the answers are ridiculous that you find in there. So, I think it's important to make it look right to the user. So I crafted a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I think it's kind of like you said, if the business asks a question and then answers it, then all faith in the user is lost in that answer anyway. So there's no point in it being there. So having it set up by another person, even if it's the business owner, but their specific login, I think you're right. I think that is an absolutely much better solution to answering a question and gaining the trust.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, the biggest thing is because this is sort of an actual maps mashup integration, and it's not really in the dashboard. So many business owners don't even know this exists. It's really scary, and unless they've actually got a Maps app or installed on their mobile, they don't get any push notifications of it. Like that example with Joy, it was like, is this what kind of Walmart is this? Yeah, it's really scary, and people should really push their clients into monitoring this. And if they don't want to, because we all know clients that don't want to, pre-publishing is just a good way to handle it.
Yeah, I know we normally will post questions for our clients because, like, nobody knows, I'm not affiliated with my client's business, so it's not going to look like they are talking to themselves in that sense.
Yeah, for sure. Right, we've got Ira Wolf. Where do we add questions? I'm not seeing them as a GMB option. Yeah.
So you actually have to go on to, like, you have to search your business name on Google, and then there should be in the knowledge panel a little link that says ask a question. So it's not within the dashboard.
Yeah, that was the whole thing about it being a mishmash. So Reb, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Reb. If you've got schema in the footer, would that impact product schema throughout the site? For me personally, Reb, I wouldn't add that actually to your footer. If it's product schema, it should be on the individual product itself. Usually your product schema, depending on how your site is structured in terms of categories, snippets of your product schema will pull through to your category page itself, but it shouldn't be in the footer. It should actually be your product schema should just be on your product page itself.
I think he was asking, Tim, if it conflicted, like if you have product schema in the body of your page and location schema in your footer, would they conflict? And as long as you're not trying to nest them all together, they do not conflict, because they don't play nice in the same exact script. I would keep them separate. But I think you can do it any way you want. I actually don't really like putting location schema in the footer. That's my personal preference. I like JSON in the header. I think it works better. I think it looks cleaner and it doesn't break as easy. But as far as, you know, them playing nice on the same page together, you shouldn't have any problem at all as long as you don't try to combine them into one script.
Interesting. See, I've found that they do conflict. Like if you try to have something as a product and a location on the same page, usually one of the two won't show. That's what I have found anyways.
Won't show how?
So like the location schema, for example, would have like the price range field, right? So you'd have that, which technically conflicts with like the cost field. So, which is in the product schema, right? So normally I find that if you have both on the same page, that usually the product schema doesn't show up.
That's interesting.
I wonder if that. Actually, I should check that. I wonder if that also is based down to the search query. So if somebody's searching, for example, vacuum cleaner in XYZ, new vacuum cleaner XYZ, you would expect the vacuum cleaner to be displayed by a store with the product markup in it. But if you search for vacuum cleaner store or vacuum cleaner, you know, then you would expect the location.
So a location query versus a shopping query.
Yeah. So that's a good test. I'm going to have to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd love to test this.
Everybody write that down and test it.
I was like very careful to say, like, in my findings, I have found, because like, I'm not sure it's an absolute. I'll show you guys here. I can share on my screen here. This is the query. So I guess your theory on this might be correct, Tim. I did a search for mattress store Toronto, and this is the one that does not show the product schema, the sleepfactory.com. So they have the local business schema on their page, as well as product, as well as, you know, a few other things. And the review, I believe, is what is triggering. No, sorry, the location one is triggering, which has this one here that has the review count. And that's what's actually showing up on Google. But all the product information that they've entered is not showing up, which is interesting. So I always assumed that they conflicted, but you technically could be right. I mean, maybe it is the query, because this is obviously a local query.
I've always heard the same thing. I've heard don't mix the two together, so I never have.
It'd be something interesting. I'm going to test it. I'm going to move my location JSON away from an every page thing, put it on my homepage and my location pages, and then put some product schema on a product page and see what happens.
Yeah.
Great. That's another webinar.
Stay tuned.
Right. So I'm trying to keep track of questions here, so I'll have to scroll down again. Glory Ramsey, any favorites schema plugins?
So I answered this in the chat, but I'll answer it here too as well. I actually don't use a plugin for most schema markup unless you have a high volume that you need to do, because a plugin will add thousands of lines of code to your website to add maybe 100 lines of markup. And I don't see a good balance. Plugins slow your site down, and schema is supposed to serve your content more clearly and quickly. So I don't use them for the most part. If you, it depends upon also what niche you're in. If you have a recipe website, or you put recipes on your blog or whatever, and you're looking for a plugin, you know, you have to almost use one, or else you spend a lot of time marking things up. So it really kind of depends upon the niche. As far as a favorite, I don't really have one. I will say my favorite markup tool is James Flynn's JSON generator, because it's awesome. And I don't have to handwrite it. But as far as a plugin, I don't have one that I use consistently enough.
We use GatherUp, which is like a review tool. Obviously, it's not schema tool, but it automatically adds the location schema and the review aggregate rating, and now the price range field after I bugged them about it. So they added that as well. So you can, here, I've got an example up on my screen.
And GatherUp is great. I guess I don't think of them as a WordPress plugin because they do so much more than that. I mean, it's a whole review generation platform. But yeah, they do a great job of integrating that into their WordPress plugin that pulls that data into your website for them, for you.
I've also never used plugins for schema markup. I'm like Carrie. I like to do it and place it myself and know where it is and know that the plugin isn't going to weigh down the website. But that being said, I have in the past used a plugin that on WordPress allows you to manipulate a specific page's header footer code, so you don't have to edit template files. And that just makes it a little bit easier to add like JSON LD to a page, as opposed to writing code to say only on this page.
Right. That's actually, I'm going to get the name of that from you, Jesse, because I'm running into that issue right now.
Okay. I will provide you a link.
Right. Digital David says to me, would say, be good to know when messaging is available in the UK. I just checked a couple of my listings and it is available. With a slight caveat, occasionally I get updates slightly before other people, being a TC. So it's in my account. So it should be with you. I can't give you a timeline, Digital Dave, but it will be coming because it's appearing. Jason Brown. Okay, so this is going into the. He was commenting. It's not just isolated to restaurants. We're talking about the ads. If you have any type of menu, they can appear, and he's currently seeing it in the health market from the Single Places platform. Yeah, I mean, where do we start with these guys? I literally hate them. They are just. If I could hunt them down, I would just take them out. Yeah, look, these third parties, Single Places, they've been around. And oh, this is the thing, chaps. Single Places has just done a deal with Facebook. So if you think this is only going to be happening with GMB, you got another thing coming, because these things could be popping up everywhere at some point when they are integrated with Facebook and your business. And your business and Facebook. Yeah, the thing that you need to do is, if it's a client, if it's a friend, if you're a restaurant owner or any kind, because this affects so many places, is to know what third parties you have put. Well, actually, you don't actually always put it, because Single Places is notorious for actually scraping any kind of menu, service menu they can find. They've been doing it for 15 years. So this stuff is out there, and it's literally outdated. Single Places feeds into all the other aggregators, DoorDash, and of course, once they're feeding into it, then they've even got outdated information. So the biggest thing you can do is, whether it's a client or your own restaurant or any business out there, double check that there's no aggregator out there that is listing your menus, your service, your products. If they are, either verify it if you're happy with them. So if you're happy using them, verify them and make sure everything is up to date and your prices are up to date. But 9 times out of 10, you want to get rid of these.
Tim, I've got an example up here just in case people aren't clear what you're referring to with the single platform links. So this is an example of like a chiropractor where it's not an ad, but it's got this link. That's what you're referring to, correct?
Yeah. And then if those go out to any other aggregator, and Grubhub, any of them, and they decide to actually run ads for that location, for that town, then all of a sudden you get the lovely little. I think they're still very much testing that feature at the minute, because they're not as much as you would expect, considering the amount of reach they've got. So I think it's still in a testing thing. But I've dealt with so many restaurants who've literally realized that something's going on when their phone stops ringing, literally just stops ringing, and all their orders for the entire weekend come through a third-party ordering site. Great for the third party because he's making 10 to 12% of every single order. But all of a sudden, the restaurant, which only has a 35% markup on food, is already losing another 12%. And literally, they work all weekend just to keep their lights on. Or you pay the wages, keep the lights on, zero profit. It's crazy for them. And so seriously check businesses. If this rolls out fully, it could be, it can impact people exponentially.
I know Shelley Fagan did a write-up on that exact thing, and it actually ended up kind of stirring up some conversation about the actual place itself. So definitely follow up with her. I think she had an interesting conversation with their CEO about it and the way that they were integrating in with Google. I'm not sure where it came up with that, but I can definitely follow up.
Yeah. It's going to be, it'll be interesting times ahead, I think. Andy asks, he occasionally he's filled in services, but it appears as a menu on the GMB listing. Any thoughts on how to fix that?
Google has to fix that.
It was initially rolled out for restaurants. And then at some point, so it was always listed as menu. At some point, someone at Google said, hey, let's offer this as a services. They swapped that over. I know there's a big bug in the thing at the minute with some service menus reverting back to showing as service reverting back to menu. Like, for example, if you're a taxi or you're a plumber, showing as menu in your mobile. So there is a bug that they're working on there. But in terms of actually getting it to trigger, saying, I don't know, it shouldn't be too hard to fix, really. Essentially, Google's just got to fix the structured data in that KP, in that that feature box that appears.
I think that people don't quite realize how experimental and new and constantly changing the knowledge panels are and local search for Google is. And so lots of things are broken and lots of things get fixed. And some things don't get fixed as fast as we would like them to. But the more that you draw attention to the problems, what they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So, don't keep these issues and complaints to yourself would be my advice. The more that we complain about it, I would like to think the faster we get them fixed. And the more diverse the complaints, not just poor Joy going, fix it.
I was going to say, Carrie, I don't think Google will like your advice, but it's absolutely true.
Don't be afraid of Twitter.
They're not here.
Florida Gulf Coast University. This is more of so it's not really in tune with this. They're having a terrible time getting some of their universities listing to show. So Florida Gulf Coast, this is a perfect question to post over in the local U, because it's not kind of in that we could be here forever trying to diagnose what the issue is. So it's not kind of in this chat. So I would post that question over in the local U, and people over there can certainly give you a hand.
I can give you a lead. I have a feeling it has something to do with category and proximity. All your buildings are very close together, more than likely, and you're putting them all in the same educational center type category, and that's probably filtering them out. But that's a lead into a way to look at it for sure.
So recommendations on sizes of images for posts.
Oh, Joy knows this.
Yeah, I know for Google Posts, actually, it's funny. We found 750 by 750, like having it as a square is best. But I know Ben Fisher over at Steady Demand had a post, which I'll try and find the link to, that had a different dimension that he recommends. I think it depends on how much of the image you're trying to get to show up. We use the images in our posts usually as buttons. So the square format works really well for that if you're trying to make the image look like a button. But I'll find the link here on Ben's website and include it in the chat.
Yeah, for me personally, I like 800 by 600, but I guess it all depends on what you're posting. If it's a button format, like Joy says, or if you're a very visually orientated kind of business, where you know, high res images are great, but I prefer 800 by 600.
I know the one thing that we discovered if you're putting text in the image at all is that it's not centered. So when you put text in the image, it's usually you have to put it closer to the top. Like you wouldn't want to put it in the middle if you're doing a square, because it doesn't look right on all the different platforms. So I hate giving this as an answer, but yeah, the type of format you want to use really depends on what type of post it is.
It depends, which is our standard answer for everything. It depends.
I hate saying that, but yeah.
So GMB and analytics, if not, how and why?
We don't have any clue why.
Wait, sorry, Tim, can you repeat the question?
GMB, so they're obviously asking why don't we kind of get, why isn't GMB integrated into analytics? Or why, you know, why isn't it there?
We get insights over in analytics.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Like I said, the squeaky wheel.
Well, I guess from a technical sense, you couldn't put analytics tracking code into a GMB page. I suppose technically you could, because it's got an individual CID number. So it has got its own individual thing. But can you imagine trying to get an analytics tracking code into a you know, an actual page like that? But you know, certainly for anyone, any business out there, you should be using UTM tracking codes. You should be using them on your actual business listing itself. You should be using them on your posts. You know, how do you know what's working for you? And unless you're looking at in analytics and understanding it, it's very difficult. So UTM tracking is your first kind of step to that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that we will ever see Google My Business Insights inside the Google Analytics platform, because it's kind of, I mean, analytics is supposed to tell you everything that's happening on your website, and the vocabulary, what they measure, the views of a GMB profile versus views of a web page. I think that it would be something very hard to combine. I haven't tried this yet, but I think I've seen where you can pull Google My Business Insights into Data Studio. Am I wrong about that? Can we do that yet?
Yep. Yeah, you usually need to pay for a connector. Like we use Supermetrics. It's not free. Well worth it, in my opinion, though, if you run an agency, because you can see like graphs that show you, you know, patterns over time, which, to be completely honest, we really only look at action data. I hate the like impressions and all that stuff. It's just really all over the place. But I agree with what you said, Carrie, because I don't think Google will ever put these systems together, because so much of what Google My Business Insights is reporting on is stuff that happens on the search results. These people are not making it to your website. So how are you supposed to put that into Google's Search Console, which is all about your website, or Analytics, which is also all about your website? I recently posted an article just explaining like the reasons why the insights for search queries vary in Google My Business versus Search Console. So I'll put the link to that in here as well.
Yeah, I actually asked, I retweeted that, and I said, yeah, that's brilliant, but that doesn't explain why my search query and insights still appear for CIA airports.
I mean, did you ever write a blog post about CIA stuff? Like, did you mention them in a blog post?
No, It'd be really scary. And there's other really worrying ones also, like Falun Gong Orphanage. I'm like, okay. So yeah, they are getting better, those search queries and insights, but they certainly got a long way to go.
Well, I know mine showed for Starbucks for a while, but it was because I had written a blog, actually 2, I think, blogs that I looked at actually mentioned Starbucks in them. So I guess if it appears enough times on the site, maybe Google thinks, I don't know.
That's what you do. I wish I was a Starbucks.
Is there a limit to the number of pages on a website that can have schema markup? No. Okay. Let's see. Have I missed any more questions?
Next.
Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
Tim, I have to show this. This is why I think you were showing for CIA. You have mentioned the CIA in blog posts. So confusing Google.
Blacklisted. Oh.
But yeah.
I was to show that.
Probably some sort of a tracking pixel on his computer that the CIA knows everything you do now, Tim.
Well, no, he has to stop talking about the CIA in blog posts. Then, you know.
Right. I'm trying to find questions. Sorry, these things are flying everywhere.
Well, here, Tim, while you do that, I actually had one. Here we go.
Brilliant.
What is the most common thing that you all see people missing when they're building websites that are local focused?
Putting the names of the towns you want to rank in on your website. That is the biggest thing I see. I actually just did an audit for an attorney in Atlanta, and all of his pages said Georgia, but they did not say Atlanta, Georgia. Dude, I get that you practice statewide, but if you want to rank in the town, you got to put the town name on those pages and in your content and talk about. And even if, so there's the whole proximity thing. If you have an address in the town, you're more likely to show a knowledge panel. But a lot of small businesses want to rank for the towns around them and you know, like a bullseye. You know, they want to reach those other places. And if you want to reach those other places, your best bet is organic search because you're probably not going to show in the map. So that means you have to have pages on your website with the names of those towns in them. That would be the biggest thing I see as an oversight. People coming to me and saying, I can't rank anywhere. Well, that's because you're not using the words on your website. Even though we're living in the world of zero-click search and maybe people aren't actually visiting your website supports your rankings. And so you have to put those words on your website if you want to rank for it. That's the biggest thing I see. One of them.
For me, in the time that I've done this, I've noticed that, and even when I give talks about this, it's always, you know, mark up your data, and everyone's like, what's that? It's like, oh, really? Okay. So I would say that I've never had an issue with clients wanting to put their town into their pages. They usually want to put too many. But yeah, definitely having to focus heavily on markup data very early on.
I would say, like in audits that we do, the ones we see the most often, would be people forgetting categories. So like really obvious ones, but we get like, you know, doctors that are very specific to a certain practice, and they just use the category doctor instead of the actual type of doctor that they are. And then they want to know why they don't rank for that specific type of practice. And then also when you shrink down a site onto mobile so many times, the phone number disappears. Like I can't tell you how many times we see that in audits. And it's because of the responsive layout automatically cuts stuff, right? But it almost always cuts the phone number, which I'm like, well, that's not ideal on a mobile device.
I would definitely agree with that. I see that a lot as well. And I would say, you know, there's a lot of things that we see consistently. Categories is a big one. I think businesses move a lot, and they don't clean their mess up when they do move, and that causes big problems as well.
Citation cleanup is so important.
It's not, I mean, citations aren't as important as they used to be. They're still important.
Sure,
Google needs to get an authoritative look at and trust where you are and what you do at that location. And when you have 5 different addresses floating out there, and some have the suite, some don't have the suite, some are in the wrong buildings, so the pit map markers are wrong or whatever. I mean, definitely consistency there is important.
Okay. Oh, I love this one. It's from Spencer Wesley. Do toxic links have a negative effect on GMB? I love it.
I think this is a hard one to answer with absolute confidence, but based on what I've seen, I would say no.
I think it depends upon, like, if you have 1 or 2 bad links, then no. If you have a consistently toxic linking profile because somebody's done some really bad, shady stuff for you, I think you would see your visibility across the board kind of, tank. I think Google would lose trust in who you are and what you are. But if you have 1 or 2 kind of bad ones you can't seem to get rid of, I doubt they'd have very much impact.
I would agree with that. Especially if you're kind of using GMB to tie back to your website and your website to tie back to GMB, if one of them is being negatively affected by links, aka your website, then essentially your stuff will kind of move in tandem with that.
So yeah, I've seen a couple of cases in the GMB forums where people have come to us and said, I'm suspended. And you know how that works. I'm suspended. What's going on? So when you start looking at these things, and it's happened a couple of times, a manual penalty for your site in Search Console will not necessarily lead to a suspended GMB page. But if you are suspended for another particular reason, 9 times out of 10, there's a manual penalty sitting in Search Console also, which can affect their decision to reinstate you. So I'm not saying it will affect it, but there's certainly a correlation there on some of the ones that I've seen. And another one is, if you want to look at toxic links, has anybody seen the GMB business websites? Seen what's going on with those? It's like people are using them as, in fact, I shouldn't probably be putting on the air because this is going to give people ideas. But essentially, they're using it as literally a gateway. So, I mean, I found business sites out there with anywhere upwards of like 150, 200,000 links going to the website, which of course then redirects to their main site. And essentially what they're doing is, I'm waiting for the penalty, and then literally we can just 404 forward, because those pages, the business website's 404 forward the minute you change your URL. So there's nothing being passed through. So they're using it kind of as like a gateway. You should go and check out some of those sites. It's crazy. Oh, and by the way, they're ranking really well these days.
Okay, Tim, now you have to share these examples with me, because like that's insane.
I'll show you. I'll show you some of them.
That's kind of funny that Google's like, here, let us give you a way to build a doorway page. There you go.
Well, that was the first question, I think, when they previewed it to the TCs. That was, we had tons of questions, but one of the questions was, well, essentially, can we have analytics? No. If this is an actual website, can it be connected to Search Console? No. So how will we know if there's a manual penalty? You don't. Yeah.
That's funny. Here, have this thing, but we're not going to tell you anything about it.
So, Joy, what's this one you just posted here?
Yeah, so I saw someone over there ask about if schema impacts ranking, and I was like, ooh, that's a good question.
I think that schema, okay, I have an opinion on this. I think that the benefit of schema is the tool for you to put the right information on your website. So if I'm marking something up, let's say local business markup, I am sure to put my name, address, phone number, open hours, map link, lat long, all of those important pieces of data are now on my website. Did schema cause the increase in rankings? Probably not, because if you just put that stuff on your website on your own, you probably would get very close to the same benefit, but it has prompted more people to put the right information on the website and make the content available to Google. So I think that ranking is a byproduct of improved content. I'm not necessarily convinced 100% that because that schema markup is on there, you're going to rank better. And I also think it depends upon how much your competitors are using it as well. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Joy, you go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, like, we've seen, so review schema, getting those gold stars in the search results. I don't think that necessarily has an impact on ranking, but we see usually by adding them, the click-through rate will go up by somewhere between 100 to 400%. That, I think, is a ranking factor. And if your click-through rate is going through the roof and stays that way, then yeah, I would be shocked if you didn't see an increase in ranking.
Well, I've always kind of thought of local search as like kind of like a watch or a clock. There are a lot of tiny little pieces that can affect things. So one item like schema might not necessarily be the thing to make the rankings work more efficiently, but it does have some sort of positive impact that could in turn move towards positive rankings, like Joy said, with reviews, because you're saying that this business is trusted and authoritative and good at what they do. Hopefully you're getting decent reviews.
I would agree with all of that. And I think, you know, that kind of is also the same as it's the tool by which we're providing enhanced information. And so that tool causes us to put better content on our website, and that tool causes stars to show in the search results, which increases our click-through rate, which we know is a ranking factor. So can you definitely say if I put schema on my website, I'm going to rank better? No. But you can say, yes, I'm going to provide a better experience for searchers, and I'm going to provide a better experience for my customers. And that could be a ranking factor, or is a ranking factor. So I think that it's kind of it's like a tool, in my opinion, to be better at what we do.
Yeah, just to clarify for anyone question, a bit unsure, but I'm sure everyone kind of understands. You should only be marking up content that's actually physically on your site. You can't kind of go and create invisible structured data, you know, a markup. It needs to be, in theory, on your site, and you're actually marking that up. So that's why when Carrie says it makes your content better, it's because you actually put in the physical content on your site. Evan asks, how important are links to rank in the local pack?
Oh boy.
It depends.
Oh my gosh. No, I was gonna say that I think links have a lesser impact than they do on organic, because there are other factors that have an impact that are not really an impact in organic. So just to give an example, I would be I'm convinced that keywords in the business name and proximity, as in how close you are to the searcher, are more of a factor than links when it comes to ranking in the local pack.
I 100% agree with that. I think that there's factors that are way more important than links. I think hyperlocal links can never be wrong if they're relevant and good links, but I think that proximity and the reasons why the local pack shows up are very low link dependent.
I've seen instances in the past of sites that ranked well and showed well in the local pack with just good content, schema markup on the site, and basic citations, basically no links past that, and they still did really well.
Or to take a step further, like you see listings ranking without websites.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, check out the business sites. I'll show you some of it.
And their doorway pages.
Yeah. Yeah, look, in local, people, you get those horrendous things where they go out and they just literally throw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these. Stick to your main aggregators for your citations. And then, you know, a business needs to understand if you're in a local area, and that's who you're working or where you're working with, get your checkbook out, start supporting some charities, join the Chamber of Commerce. In the UK, sometimes it obviously costs you, but those are all local relevant links. And of course, if you're helping out a local charity, you're also pushing that. It's building your brand awareness. Think of also working with other businesses. You're a coffee shop, he's a car wash. Great stuff. Let's do some cross marketing. People need to sit and have a coffee when he's doing a car wash. Or can I get my car serviced whilst I shop for flowers? So, you know, a handful of really relevant local websites linking to you can do far more than going out and just getting hundreds of these really bad local citations.
My rule with links, I tell all my clients this, and it's in all of our audits, is it a website that I would want to send my customer to? Or is it a website linking to me that I can create a customer from? Those are kind of my rules about links. And so like Tim's talking about that community karma, that hyperlocal, cross-marketing, all of those things are great tactics for building links locally. It is time intensive, and there's no automated way to do this stuff. You just have to pound the pavement. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, do you belong to the Rotary Club? That is what it is now. It's brand building. It's not link building. You're going out and you're, quote, virtually shaking hands with the people in your community to build business relationships. And hopefully you guys can work something out and create some sort of co-marketing that might work great for you. And in those cases, I know I'm going to get this question. Yes, reciprocal linking is fine. In those instances, I don't have any problem with that. And I don't know, I'm not going to tell you, okay, only 10% can be reciprocal. I don't care about that stuff. I just want to make sure that it's a link that's going to bring me a customer, or it's a link I'm comfortable sending my customers to. And that's my rule of thumb on those.
Yeah, at the end of the day, for any business, even, if you're thinking about putting a link somewhere, the question you should be is that going to bring me traffic? Is it going to bring me a customer? And that's the most important thing out of all of it. So Ian Helms asks, how does Wikipedia play into the knowledge panel these days?
So I usually see Wikipedia being merged into the local knowledge panel if the business has a Wikipedia entry, which is, I'd say, pretty rare for local businesses. Like I was looking into it for an attorney client of mine, and the guys that I consulted with who are kind of experts on Wikipedia told me, like, unless, this business has received nationwide kind of recognition, I can't talk, you're not going to be able to get them into Wikipedia. Or if you do get them in, their profile will probably get deleted in like a week or less, which I've definitely seen happen. I've seen some local SEOs succeed in getting their clients in Wikipedia, and then just, like a week later, some editor is like, this is spam, and deletes it. So I'd say, like, if you're not big enough to qualify, it's not likely going to impact you.
I think Wikipedia plays into the brand knowledge panel way more than it would a local knowledge panel.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah, so you can have both. I've got a client which we've been brand building with for quite some time, and we have a separate knowledge graph over above the knowledge panel, and they're not merged because obviously it's not Wikipedia where they try and mush it in between, or they'll say stock market. Interestingly, in that case, they've removed the social icons out of the knowledge panel into the brand panel. So literally, it's the logo, a link to the site, and from the knowledge graph with the social icons, and then the business below it. So yeah, I think they're messing about with it, just experimenting on how different entities and understanding.
I know theme parks generally have both. Like if you search a theme park near you, you'll likely get a mishmash of local plus Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because, you know, some people wouldn't really be eligible for Wikipedia, and or in the sense of, I'm not saying eligible, but who's going to write about a fairly, you know, there could be a brilliant brand in stainless steel. They could be a top of their game, but who's really going to write about them, which wouldn't make them eligible in that sense for Wikipedia. And Freebase, you know, so there's all sorts of different entities. I think they're experimenting, and we'll probably see a lot more on how they nest different entities in search.
That's a whole other, that's like 10 other webinars.
Okay, I mean, I've probably missed hundreds. Oh, 33 big money. I like 33 big money. Can you talk about insights? How can we trust the reporting on those?
Tim, you have an opinion on this?
Yeah, I mean, I do go and revisit it sort of every couple of months, and none are lining up. It is getting better, but none are actually lining up at the minute. So, as I said, your UTM tracking code is crucial.
Yes.
And call tracking if you can get it in there.
I pay attention to the action section, just knowing that the call number in there is really about 1/3 or 1/2 or somewhere in between there of the actual number of real calls. But it can be nice to map out over time, especially if you get access to a listing that you have never looked at before, and you kind of want a benchmark of what they're used to. You know, you can use I use the Supermetrics Data Studio connector, and I can see like month over month, you know, what type like of volume and actions they've been getting, and then, you know, see what we need to do to increase it. So I think that part is helpful. But definitely not views. Oh my gosh, ignore views. Searches are somewhat helpful, but views are so useless. And they have these like crazy anomalies, like just ignore them.
Right, we're being told to wrap it up, but there's so many questions here. So I think the best thing is obviously all those questions will be there. We'll all of us will try and jump in over the next few days and grab a question and try and answer it. Also, you can follow all of us here on, you know, different social media profiles, and yeah, and we'll you can ask specific questions, and we'll all try and get to those. So right, I don't know what. Okay, so look, I'm guessing I'm waiting for the on-air, the live to go to off-air, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, just to recap, Joy Hawkins, and we've got Jesse, and we've got Carrie, and I'm not sure on the actual Twitter handles, but I'm sure Semrush will be kind enough to include those into the actual page at some point.
I think they're already in the chat, but I'm at Carrie Hill. Mine's easy.
Great stuff.
Yeah, I put mine in the chat as well, but local search forum is the best place to reach me. Find it easier than Twitter for answering questions.
I'll put mine in the chat.